Okay, I'd next like to introduce Mary Sutton from LA No More Jails and the Global Women's Strike in Los Angeles, who has been campaigning to stop prison expansion in California.
Okay, thank you. It's such a privilege to be here on this panel with so many amazing women from all over the world. First, I want to give a context to who I am and why I might be the one talking about U.S. prison system. And to pick up on yesterday a bit, I was inspired and politicized by Selma James' Sex, Race, and Class and other radical feminist literature in the late 70s. I came to understand that the private family was a tool of the capitalism and consumerism. This is what informed my lifelong activism. I raised my own children on my own and worked full-time at the same time. I worked in independent radical bookstores, organized International Women's Day events, and was involved in the anti-apartheid movement in Minnesota. In 1999, a longtime friend was arrested on charges from the 70s. I went to Los Angeles to build a support committee as she faced trial. 9/11 happened. She made a plea deal and spent 8 years in the women's prison in Chowchilla, at the time one of the largest women's prisons in the world. During this time, I came to understand the impact of incarceration in the United States, the devastation of so many women's lives, and the total disenfranchisement of communities of color. The U.S. incarcerates more than any other country in the world, 716 people per 100,000 people, compared to other Western countries that incarcerate less than 100 people per 100,000. We incarcerate more than Rwanda, more than China. There are 2.2 million people locked up in U.S. prisons and jails. The population quadrupled between 1980 and 2010. There are another 3 million people on probation or parole. 2 to 3 million children have an incarcerated parent. Women of color are the fastest growing segment of the prison population. In California, the state prison population grew from 20,000 in 2007 to over 170,000 in 20,000 in 2007, in 1980 to over 170,000 in 2007. In that time, California built 22 prisons and filled them double their capacity. They built one state university in the same time period. The increase in the population is not due to a higher rate of crime, but changes in sentencing laws. In 1977, the state went from indeterminate to determinate sentencing. They implemented mandatory minimums, implemented the war on drugs, and implemented the 3 strikes law. Tough on crime policies ruled politicians and elections. These changes create a wider net cast by the state and targeted poor people and people of color. Los Angeles County has the largest jail system in the world, caging between 18 to 20,000 people on any given day. The LA jail has been under federal watch due to the level of violence, deteriorating conditions, and the record numbers of prisoners with mental illness. Women who have spent time in the women's jail report horrendous conditions: days without water, lead in the water, no sanitary supplies, forced medication, and severe abuse by guards. Black people make up 9.6% of the LA population, yet they are 30% of the jail population and 43% of those in jail with a serious mental health condition. The majority of women incarcerated are in for nonviolent drug offenses and what we consider to be poverty crimes. Over half are mothers, and the majority are women of color. For 8 years, I have been active in the movement to stop prison and jail in California, expansion in California and Los Angeles. In the last year, California has approved another $1 billion for further jail expansion across the state. On September 1st, the County Board of Supervisors approved a multi-billion-dollar jail plan that includes 2 structures: a new jail downtown that would house over 3,000 people deemed to have mental illness, and a new women's jail 80 miles from the center of Los Angeles. All of this expansion is occurring despite a growing public awareness that incarceration does not produce safer communities, that poor people of color, the LGBTQ community, youth are hugely and disproportionately impacted. Despite some changes in some drug laws and relief in harsh sentencing laws across the country. The machinery of tyranny of the market is propelling further construction of cages, prioritizing punishment and torture and control over justice and caring. Since 1984, the construction of new government prisons and jails has been funded through backdoor financing schemes, through the sale of lease revenue bonds, which does not require voter approval. Taxpayers stop voting to spend money on prisons and jails, so the powers that be finagled a new way. Lease revenue bonds are meant to fund public projects that pay for themselves and benefit the broader community, like toll roads, parks, schools. The public is unaware that California has sold over $4.5 billion in bonds on Wall Street to Goldman Sachs, Barclays, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, and the likes, the 1%. Investors will double and triple their investment while extracting wealth from working people and extracting people of color from their communities. This is how the LA Women's Jail will be financed. Though men are the largest part of the incarcerated population, women bear the burden of the cost to support their loved ones. Children suffer toxic shock when they are torn from their parents. This causes mental health conditions that impair them for life. Broad-based coalitions in California and LA are demanding a moratorium on all prison and jail expansion, that they reduce the prison and jail populations and reinvest social programs and jobs and opportunities that really do create safer communities and reduce recidivism. The laws must be changed to decriminalize poor people, people of color, the LGBT community, sex workers, and youth. Women need resources in their own communities: drug treatment, child care, decent housing, education opportunities. They need to be with their children. They need opportunities to support each other. Thank you.